We're live.
All right. Good morning to everyone. Let's call to order the Cuyahoga County Convention Center's Facility Development Corporation meeting on the date of Friday, January 22nd at 8. The time is officially 8:01 a.m. Julie, you want to call the roll? Order the we have to do that. The Development Corporation meeting on the date of Friday, January 22nd. 8. The time is officially 8:01 a.m.
Yep.
Julie?
I think we lost Julie.
I see we lost Julie. Let's just hang on for a second. Allow her to dial back in here.
Okay.
There we are. All right. Julie, you want to call the roll?
I haven't done that before, but.
Oh, okay. I'm running like one of my own. So, okay.
Yeah,
No.
right.
All right. So,
Looks like we're all here.
okay. Let's do that. Okay. Let's go to we've got the next thing on the agenda. Everyone has the election of officers. We need to fill the positions of secretary and treasurer. I sent an email out for anybody that wanted to respond for the two positions. I believe Trevor responded. He'd like to run for the treasurer spot. So since he's had the only response to me, let us ask for any other nominations for the floor position of treasurer.
I'd like to officially nominate Trevor McAleer for treasurer position.
All right, thank you, Matt. So we have a nomination, Trevor.
I'll second the nomination, Mayor.
We got a second from Majid. Nominations are now closed. We will now take the vote. All in favor of Trevor assuming the position of treasurer, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Trevor.
Thanks, Mayor.
All right, and now we need to fill the position of secretary. Are there any nominations for the position of secretary? All right, let me go this way. Michael Obie.
Yes.
Would you consider running for the position of secretary?
I really don't think so. I'm very new. I'm still learning.
Okay.
And so maybe next time around, okay, Mr. Mayor.
All right. All right. Secondly, let's go for we've got to fill this position. So Tim Offermat.
Mayor, I will volunteer to do it.
Okay.
Somebody nominates me.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, I officially move to nominate Tim Offermat as Secretary of the Corporation.
All right. So Majid moves to nominate Tim Offermat. Are any other nominations? Hearing none, those nominations appear to close. We have a first and a second for Tim Offermat to be the secretary. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Perfect. Welcome aboard, Tim. All right, that is done. We have filled all the election of officers positions. Now we will move on to the approval of the minutes. Everyone has the meeting minutes. Have you had a chance to review? If you have, this will be the time for questions, comments, or concerns.
I move approval of the minutes.
All right, Tim Offermat moves for approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Michael Obie. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Perfect. Let's move on to George Hillo for the executive director report.
Okay. As you know, we housed the courts from September through December. The courts were very happy with our service level. and they requested that, they indicated that whenever they had any requests, we accommodated them in a very timely fashion. We originally were asked to extend through the first quarter of this year. And then recently, we were informed that they would like to extend through June. We received several letters of and compliments from the judges on what a great job we were doing and how responsive we were. Ron will go into more details on the contract that they're proposing for the first half of this year. ASM put together a list of equipment and other items that would assist us in disinfecting the facility. The total cost of the project was budgeted at approximately 2.3 million and were funded by the CARES Act. This had to be completed by December 31st, and through the efforts of Mike Campbell and Mike Mangan, this was accomplished. Some of the examples that we have in there now are the restrooms have a light that you put your hand in front of the light and the doors open automatically. Mike will go into more details on some of the other items that we put into the facility. We think this is going to be a great marketing thing for us too, because we have done a full list of things that for the COVID in response to that, and probably one of the few facilities around that have done this. IX Center, Ron and Travis are meeting with multiple shows to see how we might be able to accommodate them. The situation is that we have booked a lot of events going out 5 years, and we do not have many openings. And Ron will give us more details on that later. The project to repurpose the Global Center building into meeting rooms has started with an RFQ for an architect. And Jeff will go into detail, more detail regarding this project. One of the suggestions that CSL came up with was to establish a convention campus. And so we decided to take a look at that. The idea is to tie the convention center and the buildings and the area around it together. And we're just starting this project, and Dave Gilbert is taking the lead on that. That's it.
All right. Any questions for George and his executive director's report? So look around, I see none. Okay, thank you, George. Let us go on to the next item. Matt Carroll talked about the Huntington Bank naming rights. Number of emails flew out this week about that. So let's dig into that.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the board. I think as many of you know, the bank approached, I think the organization and the county as well about some kind of relief on the naming rights agreement. That, as you probably know, the naming rights agreement is between the county and originally First Merit Bank and now Huntington Bank. So I think, as Ron King can tell you, there's a pretty common practice in 2020 of naming rights sponsors asking for relief in this area. It's something that's happened pretty commonly, and so at the moment, there have been discussions about various options as to what might be some relief or what might be some kind of amendment to the agreement. So I would just say those conversations taking place. I would like to get some feedback from the board on the kind of sense of it. Different possibilities. There have been discussions of reduction in the fee payment. There's been discussion of adding an additional year to the to the current agreement at no charge. I think the point of that possibility is that the naming or the kind of brand identity has been reduced during the time of the closure of the convention center. So how do you provide more brand identity through the naming rights agreement? What's a way to do that? A way to do that is to provide some additional additional time at the end of the contract, which is goes through 2035, I believe. So it's really just a report to the board. I did want to get some feedback on their take on it. The contract itself is between the county and the bank, and this kind of amendment would have to proceed for county council review and then approval if that takes place. So it's really, again, it hasn't been finalized. I have had one conversation with the city about options, and so they're in the loop as well, because they do get half of the proceeds from the annual payments. One other note, as far as this funding coming into the county and it being provided to the CCCFDC, that's something the fiscal office is happy to discuss. I don't know exactly how they are conveying the funds or how they see it, but they're happy to talk to us, talk to the organization, and clarify. I think also the county has an annual budget approval process and reconciliation, so I'm sure it can be done in that context. But I think they need a conversation there, the fiscal office. So, Mayor, at this time, if there's any feedback on this request from the bank, I think that'd be helpful.
Floor is open. Thoughts, George? Before we go to comments, so everybody knows the deal is between the county and the city, but we get a portion of those funds for improvements here, correct? And the city's supposed to plow some money back into improvements in the mall.
Yeah, Mayor, the way the agreement works, I prepared that. After a commission for the naming rights consultant that worked on it, the funds are split in half, and it is the obligation of the city to take their half of the funds and reinvest them into the malls, either for mall maintenance or capital improvement. It is the obligation of the county to reinvest those funds back into the CCCFDC, for the same purpose for the buildings, maintenance and improvements.
George, how's that been going?
Well, we have not received those funds for the improvements, and the total is about $1.2 million right now.
Okay. All right. There's a short.
Yeah, George. The county's happy to discuss that, so they're ready to do that.
Okay, great.
Thank you. All right. Floor is open. Questions, comments, concerns?
George, how much? This is Trevor. How much are we talking per year?
There's a schedule that I sent out. It's a 20-year deal. It's basically for $10 million, which would be $500,000 a year, but it starts at $400,000 and works its way up to $600,000, but it averages $500,000 a year. There's a 15% commission that was put on there for the company, I can't remember the name of the company, but they get a 15% commission, so they're getting $1.5 million off the top, and that's paid every year that we receive the funds.
Who was that, your MMPR?
That was, I think, I don't know, Jeff, who was it that negotiated that guy?
The name is, I'll come up with it. I see the guy and Superlative Group.
Yeah. Miles Gallagher, Jeff?
Yes, Gallagher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Superlative. And I think that portion, if you look at that schedule, there is a calculation that shows how much the split is after expenses. Okay. And like I said, for the 5 years, it's about $1.2 million right now.
And do they pay us on an annual basis, or is it a quarter? Have they paid anything in 2020?
It's an annual basis, but I think, George, you said we didn't get paid yet, right?
No, they got the bill. When they got the bill, that's when they made the call. They called us up when they got the bill.
Of course, we would know that the payment goes to the county. We have to ask the county if they get the payment.
It hasn't. The 2020 payment has not been made.
All right. So, Max, you said the county's prepared to talk, right? So there's
for the issue that George has raised about the payment to the organization, but this is more about making the decision for relief.
Yeah. So. First, I think
Tim, are these discussions between Huntington and the county, or the county and the city, ongoing, or have they yet to have started?
They're ongoing.
All right, so I think it's
Matt, my only thought process. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Just sort of, if the discussion is also happening with the city, I think it's worth also following up with the city on the use of its portion, because if I understand it correctly, that the city's portion is really for the mall. So where that, where we stand on that, how that is being spent, it may be worth following up on that revenue source as well. But I don't know what the answer is. I just raise it. If we're already in discussion with the city about an extension, it may be worth raising the question as to the city's expenditure of its funds under the agreement.
Majid, the one conversation I had, we did discuss that. So I didn't get specifics, but that was discussed.
Understood.
Jeff, let me ask you a question. Is the city supposed to provide a reporting of how they're using the money?
We have asked, I believe there's been inquiries in the past, and I don't believe we have ever received information from the city as to how the money was expended on the malls. I don't know that there's a specific methodology for reporting it, but it is. I think it's one of those sensitive topics that has to be discussed, because there should be accountability as to how it's expended.
Right. So everybody knows what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
Right. With one common cause. So I think that George, it'll be prudent really to contact the county and at least start talking about that. But the bigger question is the naming rights or thoughts to what Matt has presented here. Does anyone have any opinions or thoughts they want to share right now?
Sure. This is Trevor. If I can ask another question.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Jeff, I don't know if you know this offhand, but what happens to the commission payment that is due for 2020, the $68 or so thousand? If we deferred Huntington and say we gave them another year, is the county still responsible to pay that commission payment?
I have to Trevor, I'd want to look at the agreement before I answer the question. My recollection is it comes out of the payment. So my belief, it's probably like a pay when paid or pay if paid, but I'd have to take a look at that. I have not looked at that. I'm just hearing about this all now, so I have to look.
So to be clear, I think what you're saying, Trevor, if there was an extra year at no charge, would there be any commission? Would there be commission on a zero payment?
I think there's I think there's actually two questions. One question would be timing. If they didn't pay this year, if there was a skip year, do we still have to pay the commission? And then if there's an extra year, do they, are they owed? I don't think they'd be owed anything because their commission's out of the total, sum. It's out of the total 10, the total 10. So I don't think there'd be any more money, but I think the question is if there's a skipped year, are they compensated time-wise?
Matt, do you know if they agreed to increase the 2035 payment by each year? As George pointed out, it grows each year. Are they proposing to increase that 2035 or that additional year, if that's the route we were going to go, by that same rate that every year increases by?
I mean, I'd say that's one of the conversations. I don't think anybody's settled on any one outcome yet, but that's one of the things. How would you, if you say you skip 2020, how would you calculate that additional year? What would be the appropriate way to do that? So that's one of the things that's been discussed.
Because I understand where they're coming from. I mean, there's been very little activity in the building, so I understand their request, and I would like to probably explore further about adding an additional year to the back end of the deal.
Have we considered as an alternative, maybe since the payment is meant for maintenance, right? And since the lockdown and the COVID in 2020, we're probably not spending as much in maintenance. So if we could estimate that our operating expenses has gone down 50%, just offer that discount without skipping a year and extend pro rata our reduction in cost because we've been pretty much shut down. Is that an option?
The payment is not tied into maintenance. Maintenance is one of the many options we have to use it for. But frankly, it could be used for maintenance. It could be used for capital improvement. It could be used for the program that we're now doing. So I mean, I'll just say there's no direct tie between
Okay.
maintenance and the payment.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Other thoughts on Trevor's put on the floor to
By the way, Mayor, if I may, in addition to feedback on, different options, I mean, I think is the board basically kind of delegating to the county with the council to make the decision, once an agreement is sort of arrived at. I want to make sure the board is comfortable with that as well.
Well, that's what I'm trying to elicit here. I mean, do you guys, Trevor's talking about the extension. I think that's an option on the table. Is everybody comfortable with extending out a year to Huntington? And then we need to convey that to the county.
The only discussion, and maybe 1 year is not the end of the world, but it just sort of, the thought is repeatedly on my mind in terms of naming rights with all of what we're doing globally for the center, what we're doing in the atrium, what we're doing in other places. Do we want to leave the flexibility, just something to keep in mind in terms of the longevity of this? How much do we want to continue being within the confines of the same structure that we have? Is it worth having some flexibility, as the structure for which the naming rights exist will probably expand, as we would want the naming, you'd want the name of the convention center to be where most people enter. There are more, just those kinds of things. I don't know what the right answer, I guess. I'm just raising the question as to, if we do it in a way where we're not, we're doing all that other investment, and at the end of the day find ourselves restricted within a naming rights structure that is under an old structure.
Majid, let me remind everyone, this because you were there, but let me remind everyone of a couple things about this agreement. So number one, as we all know, this does not extend. We still have the right to do whatever we want with the global center. That's number one, or the county does. So number two, there's one more thing I want to point out. I think Matt is probably talking to us as a courtesy from the county. Keep in mind that when the naming rights deal was done, at that point in time, the party involved was MMPI, right? And the naming rights deal, the ability to receive the revenue of the naming rights, that was something that the county was holding on to because the county didn't want to give that additional revenue to MMPI. So the naming rights are owned by the county. They are not owned, and the right to there's an obligation to take the revenue and give it back to the CCFDC. At that time, it would have gone into the project, but the rights are actually owned by the county. The decision is actually on that is owned by the county because it was done that way so that MMPI couldn't control it at the time. Now, of course, we stepped into the rights of MMPI, the CCFDC, but that decision and that revenue is actually owned by the county, with the obligation that anything they receive has to come back to our project. Just for everyone to understand that.
No, understand. And my only point there is not necessarily. I'm even more focused on the long-term viability and sort of operations of the convention center complex in some respect, more than the revenue who received. I understand the county, the contract is with the county controls it. We are the recipients of, once the county gets those revenues, I fully get that. I just raise it in terms of, we're thinking big in terms of the future of this complex. And do we want to have a situation where, we have different names at different parts of this complex? Maybe that's common, maybe that's normal, or are we going to extend the exact same name to another part of the complex without the revenue coming for that? I just don't want to lose track of those questions. I don't know what the right answer is. Ron, I know you're trying to say something. Sorry, thanks.
It's fine. Just to maybe throw in going off of what Majid was talking about, just to throw in a thought, and I'll talk more about this when we talk about sales, but two things. If we are able to land several of the public shows from IX Center, I think the value of the naming rights increases. which I think is kind of what Majid is saying as we move forward. The other thing is, we would consult the CCCFDC to not enter into a separate naming rights deal for the Global Center or Atrium, as part of what we're trying to do is cut down on the confusion of having two facilities. So there could be opportunity there for the future of an expansion of either the naming rights, or perhaps there's some other way to work that deal. So I think what Majid is kind of saying, and what I would agree with, although not a board member, is that could be increased value to this naming rights deal, perhaps maybe even in the short term, looking at 22 and forward. So I'll just offer that for thought.
So the bottom line is, and I think this is where you're coming from, even though the temptation is to take some money now and put the extra year later, maybe the better approach is to give a discount now, but not extend this out, because you'd be to give a full free year at the end might be a very valuable free year. And maybe the idea is to give a discount now if you want to do anything.
Jeff, are there any termination rates or early escape rates for any party in the naming rights agreement?
I have to go look. Tim, I don't have it in front of me. I haven't looked at it in a while, and I would I'll pull that out and I will look at those. I can look at those issues as well. I know there's termination rights and that are tied to cause. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything which is, for convenience, but I know there are rights for cause, but I don't know that there's any cause that anyone has for anything right now.
Maybe this is something that George or whoever ends up talking to the county about the revenue split can raise with them, but really all we're being asked to do today is to make a recommendation, because we're not signatory to the agreement, so we really can't do anything more than make a recommendation to the county.
No,
Yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say the one thing we ought to do, though, and I think you raise a good point, we ought to pull that out and just take a look at it and just think about that agreement and think about how it works, and for flexibility, we just may want to think a little bit about that and see what's in
And
there.
that's it. All I'm saying is I think our interests or the county's interests are aligned, and I just don't want to be in a position where we're thinking of this as a simple monetary transaction. We're giving relief here. Okay, the easiest way is to have another year, this or that. There could be some bigger questions that are for the benefit of everybody, just not to lose focus of that. There's more at stake: the cohesiveness of the center, how it works together, the image. There are much bigger questions at stake than 1 year's payment of under a naming rights agreement. That's really all I'm trying to say.
Hey, Matt, when does the county want to come to some resolution on this? Do you know?
Well, Mayor, the payments usually made in October, November, so it's just something that we want to resolve.
All right, so I would say, to Majid's point, that we consider just letting Jeff do a little bit more due diligence, and then we just circle back together, even if we have to just circle back on this one issue with all the facts in front of us for a good recommendation to sent to the county. Right?
Yeah, one more thing. I do agree with Ron. It's going to become more valuable. And one thing we're doing as we're layering business in is not to make short-term decisions based on the current situation, knowing the economy is going to continue to grow. As Ron said, the center is going to become more valuable. And if it does become a campus, I do think there's value in one name so that we don't confuse our clients. So I would make a short-term decision rather than a long-term decision, would be my opinion.
All right, so I'm gonna recommend that we just have Jeff do a little bit more due diligence, and then let's circle back. Go ahead, Ron. You got something? Ron?
Mayor, I want to let the board know, and I see Craig Liston on here. He was probably hoping he'd get out of this meeting clean. But if he has anything to add, I would ask him to add. The convention center in Detroit, Huntington bought the bank that the convention center, TCF, was named after. So now the convention center in Detroit is also Huntington.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, Ron. So thanks. I think that should be part of your conversations with Huntington Bank on how they brand the two centers, so there's not a lot of confusion in the marketplace. And then on the global center, the only thing I would throw in there as kind of a counterpoint
is there have been operations where it's been set up as kind of a separate brand for an executive conference center. So, it can be marketed in conjunction with the convention center, but also have a separate name as an executive conference center if that's the direction the board decides to go.
Okay, any other comments? Is everybody okay with Jeff proceeding and us circling back? Just on this one issue?
That works.
All right, Trevor says okay. Anyone else? All right, Jeff, let's move forward on.
Okay, I'll get back to everyone on this quickly.
Yeah, let everybody know. Okay, and then we can circle back. George. All right, let's go on to the next item, the Convention Center financial update. Ron King.
Thank you, Mayor, and Steve, feel free to chime in here if I miss anything. We're looking at our end of year numbers. We just about have everything buttoned up. What a year. As soon as the pandemic hit and the governor put out his order, we reacted immediately through ASM Global. We cut staff, as you know, cut expenses. If you would have gone into the convention center March through August, there were no lights on. We were running the air at a bare minimum just to keep the building alive. The only staff we had in the facility was security and some of our engineering staff, just again to keep the building on life support is really what it was. That being said, we, out of 251 events that we had budgeted for, we were able to do 29 events in that first quarter. We budgeted for over 216,000 attendees, and the first quarter events actually are large events. They're public events, but they're large events. Beer Fest, the Cleveland. We have the oh, Mike, help me out. We have Beer Fest. We have
Tribe Fest.
Tribe Fest. Yeah.
Tribe Fest. That's what volleyball tournament and so on.
Yeah. So huge numbers on those. So we did have 76,000 people come through the facility on that first quarter. But you look at everything, we were able to save money on operations. So we came out with an increase on our deficit of $1.4 million, which all in all things considered, I don't think is too bad. So our overall deficit this year was at $4 million. We were trying to sneak a 3 in there, but we just didn't quite make it. And looking at next year, or 2021 rather, as George mentioned, the courts have asked to June, so that's good. So that's a good thing for us. That keeps the building alive. That also lets us, if there's an opportunity to layer in other business along with the courts. They are primarily running in the atrium, the Global Center. They continue to do bench trials as we speak. So they are still operating there. We have an agreement that we're working with on the county and the courts to continue through. If we are able to come back with large business, which I think that's a huge if at this point, we do have the right to negotiate with the courts and remove the courts either in part of the building or throughout the entire facility. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you. Our book of business has slid on the first quarter, has gone down to 0. We did have some sports groups, but it was impractical for those to happen given the current circumstances. We do have some groups that are looking at April, May, but I think that those are going to slide as well. We feel like we have a chance to start coming back, and Terry was talking about this earlier, in July. That's when we have some very large events that could occur in July, and I think that would be great. But at this point, the number that we gave the board for this coming year of $4.7 million loss, we can reach that. We're not afraid of that number slipping any further. That was a number that we were able to come up with regardless of how we did this year, that we feel like we can manage to that number based on what we did last year. So looking forward, I think that we're in good shape as as far as a $4.7 million loss is good shape. We're in good shape, and we don't foresee having to go to anyone for any additional funding. So that's the good news on that. And Mayor, I'll just, if it's okay with you, I'll just keep going down the line unless there's any questions on the financials. And I have to say that Trevor, we look forward to you being treasurer, and I'm sure that we'll get into more in-depth discussions. I look forward to that on the financials before the board meetings, so that that there's a good picture of what's going on. And I know, Mayor, you're putting together a monthly meeting, so I'm sure we'll get into more in depth on the finances moving forward. But I'll take any questions on the
Questions? Ron, I have a question. Ron, what happens if the dates, if July slides on you? Those things that
so, you know, Mayor, the way that we're working right now, we can still manage to that number. We would, if July slides and the courts aren't in, we would have to shutter the facility back down, just as we did when the pandemic started. And that's something that's, you know, we did bring back some staff members. There weren't a lot. We did bring back some, about 5 staff members on our side. That was security and housekeeping mostly. We did bring back through our Levy partner, a couple of employees from there to serve concessions for the courts. Those employees would have to be furloughed again, and we would just go back into life support as we did at the first part of 2020.
All right. Questions for Ron before he moves on?
Ron, Mr. Chair, Trevor, if, I mean, the other option too, right? We would have a discussion about potentially extending the courts in there, at least to kind of keep things as is right now. If
Sure.
things keep getting pushed back like that.
Sure. Well, what I've told the courts is that for as long as they can be in there, chances are that I'm not doing large scale events anyway. So it really is a great relationship from that standpoint.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Nothing's off the table. I will say that nothing's off the table.
But come to the mayor's point though, if it's the opposite and we're able to hold larger events, you're not able to accommodate the courts and larger events, though, or are you able to do both?
Sure. It depends on how large the event is. And here's what I foresee happening. And again, I'll ask Craig to chime in if I misspeak on anything or if he has a different viewpoint from the corporate side. I foresee events when they do come back, they're going to be small. They're going to be smaller than they were. And so with the courts mostly over in the Global Center or Atrium side, that allows us to use the exhibit halls and the convention center as a separate entity. We even have the separate entrance. So we could divide those two. So we could do simultaneous events. And I think that would be the best case scenario, to be honest with you, is to be able to do simultaneous events within the facility.
What about the draft, Ron? What about NFL draft?
Well, I wish, unfortunately, David Gilbert couldn't be with us. You know, I am hopeful that, hope isn't always a plan, but at least I have hope, Mayor. I am hopeful that the draft reignites Cleveland, and that following the draft, we start seeing a steady increase. I am hopeful. I'm not sure at this point. I can't. We don't have any business in the draft. We have a couple of meeting rooms that they want to use as offices, but other than that, they aren't using the facility. So other than how it's going to be perceived for Cleveland as a whole, which I think is a positive thing, the draft doesn't directly affect us much other than perception and using it to as a springboard to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
The first thing is the barbershop quartet, isn't it, Ron? At the end of June?
The first large thing,
Yeah.
again, it's big for the city, for us, eating space, but it is huge for the city. And so
Yes.
we look to the barbershop quartet in June, East West I we have in June, and the rail conference. So, but you're right, the barbershop quartet is really, it's July, it's early July, it's over 4th of July weekend. But that's the first really big thing for the city. You're correct.
All right, any other questions? All right, Ron, go ahead, you continue.
All right, I'm going to pull Mike Campbell in on this. George mentioned the CARES Act and our capital. While we've had the facility down, we've been able to take advantage in the capital realm, and Anna Volsko and Mike and the team done a great job. Mike's going to go into more detail on that. And I want to thank the county with the CARES Act funding. They budgeted $2.3 million for us. We're going to come in at around 2.2 million, we think. How many here remember the movie Brewster's Millions with, I think it was Richard Pryor? I might be dating myself a little bit, but
Yes.
Yes, you are.
The premise of the movie was if he spent X amount of millions of dollars, X amount of time, he got a lot more money. And Mike Campo is my Brewster. Difficult to spend $2 million in a couple of months, especially going through all the RFP processes, et cetera. But he was able to do it.
I just want to clarify, that's not how government sees its budget, just FYI.
Well, we're not coming back for more millions either, Matt. But that being said, he and the staff did a great job. And what we did for the CARES Act is we took, ASM Global came out with the Venue Shield program. So that was really our basis of what we needed in the facility to keep it strong and healthy moving forward. And I think that just as 9/11, a lot of these things that we did, they're going to be with us forever. And most of what we did is things that you don't see, it's things in the background. So what we did is we came up with, and Julie, you can go ahead and pull this up. We came up with a PowerPoint. This is going to be signage that's within the facility. It's also going to be on our web page. So it really shows people what we've done to keep them safe and keep them healthy. It was great work with the entire team going through this and putting this together. So what you're about to see on this PowerPoint are actually signs that will be placed in the facility and also on our digital media within the facility. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Before we get into the CARES Act projects, I want to talk first, just give a quick summary of our year-end capital projects for 2020. So all in all, we completed a total of 23 projects in 2020. Some of the big ones, the key ones are we added rigging points to our atrium ballroom, 33 rigging points. We were able to finish concrete repairs on our loading dock outside the building, replace the carpet on C2, and then also replace the furniture throughout our atrium. So those are some of the big ones that we 100% completed in 2020. In addition to those ones that we completed, we also have several that are still in motion. Currently, some of those big ones are our wireless network infrastructure. We just got these bids in. This is going to be a huge one for us because it's the upgrading of our Wi-Fi throughout the building. And it's going to be critical for us to keep pace as far as technology goes and our Wi-Fi goes to meet the needs of our clients once we come out of this and get back to full strength. Exterior security enhancements. We're currently looking at the best solutions to remedy some vulnerabilities we may have outside the building in our perimeter. So we're looking into that right now and looking at what's best to do. Replacing carpet on our C3, which is our exhibit level. I believe that's actually done. We actually finished that up last week. So that is done. So those are some of the big ones that are still in motion. Overall, when you factor in the projects that we 100% completed and those that are in motion, we're forecasting that will be about $1.1 million below what we budgeted for in 2020 as far as capital goes. Okay. And then separately from those capital projects, we've also been heavily engaged and involved with the CARES Act projects. As we've said a couple of times, we were approved for 2.3 million. Our anticipated spend is going to be 2.2 once we're all finished. We were able to complete 90% of the projects before the year end. So just really proud of the team to be able to get these out to bid, evaluate those bids, and get this work done. So really proud of the team that pulled together, rallied, and got that done. So then I think it was maybe a day or two before the end of the year, they actually ended up extending the CARES Act into 2021. So now that will afford us the opportunity to finish the remaining 10% that we have. Again, fortunate to be able to use these funds towards meaningful upgrades to the facility. And then this PowerPoint here, I'll go through really quick. It just really illustrates the improvements we've made in our commitment to the health and safety of our employees and visitors. Okay, so the first one, big one for us, this is the needlepoint bipolar ionization. This is huge because it's in our air handling units, and so it impacts the entire building, and it seeks out and destroys the virus throughout the whole facility through our air system. Next. Same technology we installed inside of our elevator cabs. These are enclosed spaces, so we wanted to do a little bit more in those areas. So each one of our elevators now has a separate ionization unit to clean the air. Next. HVAC filter upgrades. Originally, we had MERV 13 filters, which if anybody knows anything about MERV, that's pretty good. But we actually upgraded them to MERV 15. So we really have hospital grade filtration throughout the building right now, which we're very excited about. Next. Our escalators. So this is a high touch common area. So we put ultraviolet light underneath of the escalator handrails to kill the bacteria and viruses. Next. So also with the handrails, we actually replaced the handrails themselves, and they are antimicrobial. So not only do we have the UV, we also had the antimicrobial handrails that resist and reduce the spread of the germs on the escalators. Another big one for us, so all of our restrooms right now have automatic door open sensors. So instead of having to grab a handle, push a door, you just wave your hand in front of the sensor and the door opens up. So we feel this is going to significantly reduce the spread.
That one is George Hilla's favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one we're very excited about as well. This is at the Hilton Connection. So the prior doors were your typical grab the handle, pull open, and had a lot of operational issues with those. They would stay hung up because of the pressure differential between the two buildings. So installing these doors not only makes them hands-free, but it also solved an operational issue for us. Nanoseptic. This is a low cost, kind of, I think, a pretty cool, neat technology. It's there's stickers that you place on high touch surfaces. We put them on our elevator buttons, and they self clean themselves. So any germs on there, they clean. I think it's within 20 minutes, they completely destroy whatever's on there. So I think that's pretty neat. Okay, temperature scanning equipment. We purchased several mobile thermal temperature scanning units that we can customize and have flexibility to move throughout the building based on the needs of our clients. So if boat show comes in and because the number of people, they want a temperature scan, the people as they come through the doors, we have the ability to do that. They also can be integrated into our magnetometers or metal detectors. So it was kind of a win-win. Next. Cleaning equipment. So we learned early on that we didn't want to rely on the supply chain. We were having trouble getting supplies back in March, April to clean the building. So we came up with a solution to self-generate on site. And so Anna Volsko, who's our director of operations, really looked into this and found, I think, a great solution. It's eco-friendly. It's done on site, and we completely control the amount of product we can generate. And then we also purchased electrostatic sprayers to more efficiently deploy the solution. Next, sanitization stations. So we have these that we can put throughout the building. They're actually made from recycled milk jugs, so it also ties into our sustainability initiatives. And they contain sanitizing wipes and hand sanitizer. Next. Signage, just flexibility, right? So now we have the ability to not only communicate our messaging, but also the client's messaging and put those strategically throughout the building So we were excited to get some more of those as well. Our employee break room, our original employee break room was very small, very tight. Employees complained, too cramped in there. So we were able to more than double the size of our employee break room so that we can socially distance out our employees during the break time. So once we come fully back to strength, I think our employees are going to love it. All right. And so this is just a few certifications that we achieved in 2020 that we're very proud of. GBAC, which really is a health safety certification. We were, if not the first, well, I'll say the first convention center in Ohio to get this done. Again, Anna Volska did a great job with this. And it's also something that our clients really look for. It's really become the gold standard in the industry as far as health safety certifications. And then LEED Gold, this is more about sustainability. What I'm proud about here is that, the building itself was designed as LEED Gold, which is great. But this is LEED existing building, which really speaks to how you're operating, not how you were designed, but how you're operating. So just really proud that we were able to get that. And then ASM's Venue Shield program. So we're constantly in contact with our corporate office to make sure we're living up to their standards. And then Apex ASTM is another sustainability, really an industry specific certification that really speaks to, again, how we're operating, which I would say it's probably not quite as big or as well known as LEED, but it is known throughout the industry, and our clients do look for that as well. All right. Lastly, we're proud to be, to join this initiative put forth by Destination Cleveland. We feel we're doing all we can within these four walls here, but this initiative really speaks to having the destination as a whole do their part. So we're proud to be a part of that. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Hey, Mike. This is Tim. And I know Terry has mentioned this before as it relates to the hotel, but are you starting to see this pop up as a prerequisite for groups in proposals or in the RFP process for you? I think Terry had mentioned before that she's seen this with regard to the hotel, but I'm curious as to how much you're seeing this being discussed among customers or even your competitors these days.
Great question, Tim. And I will say among our competitors, it's being discussed quite heavily. The customers, they don't know yet the formal questions to ask, but they do ask, have we done? And now we have a manual of this is documented. This is everything we've done. Destination Cleveland put together a client advisory board, and it's some of our largest clients and some of our clients that we'd like to have here. That is one of the main topics that they've been talking about on this advisory board is what can we do to ensure the safety of them and the safety of their guests. And that's what everyone wants to know is what are you doing to be safe? That's why I think it's important to have signage around, because a lot of what we did is behind the scenes and people can't see it. You can't touch it or feel it or see it. So I think it's important to let people know this is what we've done. I will tell you that our competitors, it's a bit like an arms race right now, I would say, because of all the convention centers, and something that through ASM, our corporate office has really been leaning to get these things done. And again, I think that this board and the county, especially in some of our smaller markets, they don't see the value of this. And so they're not putting forth the effort in some of the smaller markets. The larger markets, they're all on board. Now, I will also say to George's comment earlier about marketing. I had one of the industry magazines reach out to me last week and asked me questions about what we're doing. I will send a link to that article and she can get it out to the board immediately after this meeting.
Great.
And what they really asked is, what are we doing as a convention center that no other convention center is doing? And I go back to what Mike spoke of. We are now making our own cleaning solutions. And you know, at first I was excited. I thought there was going to be a still on the back dock, and I thought we could have other marketing potential with that, but it's not. It uses salt water. But now, you know, if anything like this ever happens again, and there's an issue with supply chain, we won't be burdened by supply chain. We actually make our own in-house. So I think that's the thing that we do that's unique.
All right, any other questions?
This is a silly question, but just sort of the filter upgrade from MERV 13 to 15. Was this just simply using a higher MERV? I mean, was our system able to handle the increase in the MERV for the filter itself, or did you have to do upgrades to the system itself to be able to handle the stricter filters? And how quickly is the circulation of the air actually happening? I mean, I presume the higher filter is reducing the speed with which you're recirculating the air if you haven't done it. So curious as to the speed with which the air gets recirculated in the system with the higher MERV.
Yeah, great question. You know, obviously the higher MERV you have, it creates more friction, and your fans have to push the air. They have to work harder to get the air through the filters. But we did not have to do any additional, upgrades to the air handling units as far as the fans go to be able to push it. We had that excess capacity and capability already built in. So it was really, a pretty easy swap. Now, the fans do have to work a little bit harder. So, your electrical costs might go up slightly. But we felt that was a worthwhile trade-off to be able to clean the air more efficiently.
I think part of what we were blessed with, Majid, is our system, our facility and systems are so new that we were able to make that switch out without too much difficulty. If you have some older systems, it would probably be more difficult.
Yeah.
That has been an issue. I mean, we've seen it with clients in different places. It's not as simple as getting a higher MERV, because it's all you're doing is you're slowing down the circulation of the air in your facility. But understood.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to go on to the sales report.
The sales. Yep. So my hat's off to Travis and his entire team. They've been able to take 60 pieces of business, 60 groups, 60 of our clients out of this year and move them into future years. So now we have bookings out past 5 years into the future. One of the things that we did, and again, our corporate office leaned on us a little bit to do, not that they had to lean on us, but supported us, I guess is a better term. We didn't want to be a destination or the facility known as the ones that say no. So this is a time we felt like we really did need to partner with our clients. So the first thing we did when it came to force majeure cancellation is we tried to work with them and try to place them into a future time zone or a future date. We were very successful with that. And what we did is we held our rent rate and moved them into future years without an escalator, just trying to help everyone. I think that coming out of this, there's a real opportunity for Cleveland if we place ourselves correctly. And I know Destination Cleveland's working on this as well. There's a real opportunity for us to be a star coming out of this, for us to be the ones that can help clients. Because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of clients are going to shrink. They're not going to come back at full strength. So some of those clients that were too big for us, now we will be a fit for those clients. And those are some of the things that we're really targeting. And we've had some success with that, with people that were too big. And also some of the people that were outgrowing us, they will now be able to stay with us a little longer. So I think those are good things. I want to talk slightly about, very quickly about IX Center groups. we've been meeting with most of the IX Center groups. We have contracts with a couple of them. Ceramics is one of them. We have a bridal show that we have a contract with. The large ones, boat show, auto show, home and garden show, those we are in discussions with. We have a draft agreement out with auto show and a draft agreement out to home and garden. Boat show is waiting a little bit. They still are on hopes that the IX Center will reopen. We'll see. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see if it does. So I say all that to say, not looking at a crystal ball yet, but 2022 for the convention center could be a record year. It could be a 2019. If we are able to capture all of this, plus with our book of business we currently have, it could be a record year. That won't translate to Terry, because a lot of what we're pulling in is going to be local and not have the hotel room nights associated with it. And as George mentioned, it's been a real jigsaw puzzle trying to fit these groups in. Most of them want to be January through March, and because of the business we already have, we can't always accommodate that. So we're looking at December through March. We're trying to stay out of the later part of March, because that's when we really start getting the national conventions, the citywide conventions coming in. So we want to try to protect that for the actual citywide revenue producing business. That's our prime focus, is still the citywide producing business. But it sounds like we're going to get a lot of that consumer show business in that first quarter. So we're happy about that. Travis, anything you'd like to add that I may have left out?
No, I think you covered. Thank you.
Any questions on sales?
Ron, this is Tim, or for Travis also. You've touched a couple of times on activity in the second half of the year. You know, generally, and maybe this is going to have to come from your gut a little bit. Are you actually seeing any trends in business from 4th of July through year end pushing to 2022 already? Are you starting to see that, or are you still hopeful that the lion's share of the business in the second half of the year is going to happen?
So I'll let Travis chime in if he wants to. Tim, we are seeing some starting July and further out ask questions and are getting concerned. I'm not willing yet to pull the force majeure trigger, because I feel like that we can have an event in June, July. Especially July. I feel like that if we can actually get shots in arms and as people relax a little bit, and look, we're doing the courts. We've proven that we can do events safely in the convention center. We have the room for social distancing. We have all of that thought through. We have done all of our diagrams to have social distancing. So even if things are relaxed, but yet we still have to have masks on and social distance, we can still do those events. So I'm hopeful, but as each month goes by, I'm a little less hopeful. Travis, anything you want to add?
No, I think what Ron said is the feeling we're getting from the clients. They want to have meetings. You know, they are ready to be back in person. The hardest thing we're fighting now is the questions on what are the restrictions going to be. You know, how many people can we have in the building? How many people can we have in a meeting room at a time? And everybody's really asking, do you have any insight on when the restrictions are going to loosen? And it's the waiting game right now. If, you know, I think if the restrictions went away, everybody would stay. But right now it's, you know, and the problem is if you're a July meeting, you can't wait until June to plan your meeting. You need to know by 90 days out. So it's the domino effect of giving people the amount of planning time they need to do a successful conference, because people want to come. And September, October is our busy time, and we've got a full book of business. We can't give them any guidance because we just don't know right now. But we're answering questions, and the stuff that Ron and Mike and the operations team did. The clients are ecstatic about the things we've done to the building during our shutdown to be able to have a safe conference, and that has been phenomenal in our selling effort.
I also want to add that for these citywide groups, which are typically associations of some type, it is their largest moneymaker they have all year. And a lot of them are very concerned. You know, they had to bypass 1 year without their largest money maker. And now they're looking at a second year. Some associations are getting concerned of whether or not they will survive that. You know, we saw this again after 9/11, where there was a lot of associations combined. We may see that again. But I think if we position ourselves correctly, this could be a silver lining on this horrible, horrible dark cloud moving forward.
Hey, Ron, have you, George, have we been approached or anybody asked us any question about, you know, these mass vaccination centers, convention center usage?
We haven't been approached officially on a mass evacuation or not evacuation. I'm sorry, that type of center. I know that public auditorium. There's been talk that they're going to set up to do vaccines. We had one person reach out to us, but it was more, I would say it was a softer approach. It wasn't anyone with any official capacity or capability. Okay. So, but that is something that we've looked at. I know that Terry has looked into that as well. But at this point, there hasn't been anything. I know a lot of our convention centers are doing that, Mayor. Yeah. But we haven't been approached officially. Well, yeah, I just think that, and Matt, I don't know what you know from the county's end of it, or Trevor, but it seems to be trending that way here, right? Soon, right? So I know us having one of the largest states out here.
I'd say that is a possibility at some point. I mean, the question now is the supply is so limited. And I think protocol has been used on a limited basis for that purpose already. But it's, you know, I think people are aware of the resource, and, you know, it'll kind of maybe come into more focus in a couple months.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Ron? All right. Let's go to the Hilton Hotel report from Sherry and Larry.
Great. Thank you. Larry is going to kick us off here.
Yep. Thank you so much. So just looking at some year-end stats for the lodging markets across the U.S. and Cleveland overall, just Ron touched on it. It was a horrific year. RevPAR for the U.S. overall was down about 48%. I will tell you that number is probably a little bit conservative given hotel closures and how Smith Travel Research treats that. The number may actually be significantly more than that. The Cleveland market overall was slightly worse, about 53% down for the year. So some trends we've seen. Now that's the Cleveland market overall. If you go to the next slide. Looking at the sectors that within the lodging market, upper upscale hotels like the Hilton have been impacted much more dramatically than lower tier hotels like economy and mid-scale. Extended stay is also one that has held up relatively well, but this is definitely a tiered impact of the higher quality of the hotels, the more the impact that we've seen. Next slide, Julie. So the downtown Cleveland sets, this is the set we track on a weekly and monthly basis. This set RevPAR was down 72% compared to 2019. I think you can see coming out February, March, April, data was actually incomplete due to hotel closures. May in the 90s down, saw a little bit of an upward trend, if you want to call it that, for a couple of months. Then really over the last 6 months here, kind of been hovering around this 70 to 80% decline. December, actually, when we look at the day by days, would have been probably a little bit worse, but there was a little bit of pocket of demand around the Browns Monday night game under the weekend of December 14th. So that helped out for the month overall. Next slide. As Ron touched on, the outlook for the lodging market overall is still trending towards a recovery back to 2019 RevPAR levels by, say, 2023, 2024. Now, that recovery will not be even. Resort destinations will probably come back sooner. Urban, big box, gateway cities, hotel markets that are heavily group reliant, maybe on the tail end of that recovery trajectory. Just we're seeing, the group hotels are still continuing to be absolutely hammered in terms of what they're doing right now. Next slide. Terry, you just want to talk about a few things for the hotel?
Yeah, I do. And I think, I'd like to start off with one of the questions that Ron talked about. We all talked about how do we see business coming back? I think a really good way to look at how do we see business coming back is we are going to be in parallel with the distribution of the vaccine. So as we see doctors and nurses getting vaccinated, they are the first to begin traveling, right? As you see these little upticks in our weekend, they're going to be the first responders because they will be vaccinated. And then as we get into children and families, because really schools and children and teachers are going to be vaccinated next, we'll see them traveling. So I think that's kind of one way to look at it is the business model and demand will return in accordance to the rollout of the vaccine. A second way is, which Travis said, is in accordance to the guidelines that the governor puts forward. It's really hard to get a commitment from a group in December, even weddings, when for a wedding they can't dance, right? They still can't dance. And then for groups, you can't meet over 300. So it's hard for somebody to openly sign a contract knowing that these guidelines might still be in place. So those are two things that are going to really work hand in hand with the return of our demand. That is for sure, just to keep that in mind. The other issue we have, which is, Ron kind of layered into, is it's a slow crumble. Like we never thought the fourth quarter was going to be all cancellations. And then we were very optimistic about the first quarter of this year. And then that just started to crumble. So the second quarter is kind of doing the same thing where we're a little more aware that things are very fragile. And the second quarter, we started to lose some business. To that point, we do not feel that the third and fourth quarter will be force majeure. You do have the ability to rework your meeting. You have the ability to make it smaller. You have the ability to make it social distanced. So I think that's, something that we should be aware of. We're going to start to evolve to take a stronger arm and say, listen, we've got to rethink these meetings, retrain our guests as to how they envision, meeting, even yourself. Jeff and I were talking earlier. Yes, leisure is going to return first because there is so much pent up demand. And as we say in Hilton, travel is a part of our DNA and people always travel. Weddings are returning with a vengeance, smaller, but yet they're rethinking the dancing component through karaoke or just different types of entertainment for weddings, but they are going ahead with these weddings. And then, corporate will be taking on more of a hybrid approach, meaning virtual and on property. Because one thing corporations and associations are finding is they're getting a higher attendance with the virtual component because people that typically wouldn't travel or people that might not have the funds to attend an association meeting can now attend virtually. So they are seeing a new revenue source and definitely the ability to attract a different clientele through a virtual meeting. So we are definitely seeing that too. We expect certainly the second half of the year, as we said, to be much better than the first half of the year with confidence, with vaccines, and then with success. I mean, the NFL and the sports have been great success. I mean, yeah, there's been a little bit of COVID, but overall they've pulled off the entire season. The draft itself is going to be a huge confidence boost for all of us. And then additionally, Cleveland itself has done an excellent job with keeping us safe. When you look on the graphs compared nationwide, Cleveland is very highly successful in keeping our numbers low. The hospitals and everything that we're doing are giving people more confidence. We're in an excellent location for regional meetings. I would say, think of us like a baby Chicago. People can come from all over and do their meetings here. So we do expect probably to return a little quicker than the New Yorks or the DCs or the San Franciscos where there are a little more concerns with the population and the way they're handling, retooling their whole marketing of the city. So we're much further ahead of that under the leadership of David. And I know Ron and we're all in parity. We work very closely together. I say, we're like the trifecta, and everything we say we're in parity with, and all what Ron shared is the safety measures he's putting into the convention center. We're doing the same at the hotel, so we'll be able to market that in partnership with that. So the future is bright. We are staying very focused. I think, we are making long-term decisions and short-term decisions. As I said, we have to be careful that we don't offer too many concessions early on, and that we know in 22 and 23, the demand is going to be high. We have to make sure our rates are good there. We're capturing as much revenue as we possibly can, because, we have to make up some ground here. So that's where we're at.
All right. Any questions for Terry or Larry?
Mr. Mayor, I will say one of the things that Destination Cleveland and Terry and I are really pushing is we have a fantastic drive-in market. Mm-hmm. So over, and Terry mentioned the New Yorks and San Franciscos, the extreme East Coast and West Coast city, they're a little more cities, they're a little more restricted on drive-in. So that's one thing as we look for new business, or even trying to get our business to resume, is we're pushing that drive-in factor. That's you don't even have to get on an airplane.
Okay.
Ron, you're looking at different lodging markets across the country. The ones that are expected to recover more quickly are the ones you just outlined, where it's a drive-to market, resort destinations, but even urban centers that have the heavy reliance on drive-to versus air travel, and particularly international air travel. Should recover a little bit more quickly.
All right. No other questions? We'll move on to Jeff Applebaum, an architect's RFQ update.
Okay, thank you. Julie, if you can, yeah. So this is just a quick summary of the status of our adaptive reuse project for the Global Center. As everyone, I believe, knows, we kicked this project off with an RFQ for the criteria architect to work with the program that we received from John Katz and begin this process. So just a little bit of background, 8 design firms actually responded to the RFQ. 3 of them were shortlisted. And they were their materials were reviewed. There was an interview by the interview committee on December 22nd. And as a result of those interviews, we ranked, or I wasn't part of that committee. I purposely stayed off of it, but some on this call were Ellis Katz, and others were in the committee. The proposers were scored and they were ranked in the following order. TVS Design from Atlanta was actually the first ranked. Element Architects, the former architect for the center, was second ranked, and then Clark Nixon, teamed with the local firm Bostwick, was third. As a result of the ranking, the procedure is you go to the highest ranked firm and you proceed then to see if you can get to terms and conditions with them. So all firms were notified of the ranking. And then as the highest ranked firm, what we did is we have now provided TVS. They've received some materials. They've received the proposed form of contract with the scope and also what we refer to as a diff doc, or a differentiation document, which spells out what their services will be as compared to the services of the design builder or others. They were provided the information. We answered some technical and strategic questions, and we have asked them to respond hopefully before, but no later than January 29. They will give us any comments they have on the contract to make sure that we can get to a contract with them, and they will provide their financial proposal. At that point in time, we will review their response, to make sure there are no contractual or other issues that we can't easily take care of. We will look at their fee structure, and we will negotiate with them to get to the best possible deal we can with them. Once we know what that is, we will then, we'll have a recommendation that we'll return to the board with. And the recommendation will either be that we can come to resolution with TVS, and we will, provide for the board what that is, so we can move forward. If we really think we've come to impasse with TVS because we cannot get to a reasonable position, we then tell that to the board, and the determination is made as to whether we proceed with TVS or go to Element Architects, which is the second ranked. The next part of this process, so we are in the process, we have a draft also of the RFQ, RFP for the design builder, which is the next party that comes on board. As soon as we make the determination that we are proceeding and can get to contract with TVS or whoever, we will then issue the RFQ, RFP for engagement of the design builder. The reason we don't do that in advance is because it's possible that one of these teams will propose to be the architect of record, working with the design builder. So you have to know who the criteria architect is and let the market know that before you proceed to the next step. So it is moving forward. Once again, this process is proceeding. It will continue. We obviously have to continuously verify that from a budget point of view, that the funds are in place to do this. From a timing point of view, we have once we get a little bit further down the line, we can confirm the schedule and we can lock in a budget. So that's the process. That's where we are.
All right. Any questions for Jeff for the process for the RFQ? Everybody seems to be clear.
Mr. Chair, just one question.
Yes, Joe.
Jeff, on either design builder or this contract, are there any FBE or MBE requirements or anything?
They're not requirements, they're goals.
What are they?
They are reflective of the county's goals, and they are stated in the, once again, to get this in the criteria architect's pretty tough, because here you're looking for, it's really the national expertise, but it will reflect it's basically the same as the county's program as a goal, and that will be in the design build.
Have you worked with TVS before?
TVS proposed, I don't know if you would know this, but they actually proposed on the convention center. I've worked with them they've been parts of some teams on some stadium projects. Ellis has, by the way, Ellis Katz has, but I haven't had a lot of work with them. They're Atlanta based, they're Chicago based.
Okay.
Trevor, I've managed 3 different facilities that were designed by TVS. They're okay. You can't go between it, and actually David O'Neill's on the line, and I know he's worked with TVS and LMN both a lot more than I have, but both of them are just high caliber, high quality firms.
Thanks, Ron.
I've actually conducted partnering sessions with them when I came in to facilitate projects, but not in this role. So,
David O'Neill, you want to jump in?
Yeah, we've worked across the table from them in Orlando, Boston, San Antonio. We're working across from them in Denver right now. We worked across from them in Nashville. We've had a extraordinarily long relationship with TVS and working with them all over the country. And
Thanks,
a couple international spots as well. So during I know some of the people here were on the interview committee, but we said TVS brought the A team. They have 4 design studios that work on convention centers. You got their top studio committed to this job.
The only issue, and what we're going to have to see is obviously this project is not, this is a modest scope, and we just have to make sure that as they look at the project, they brought their A team, but we have to make sure that from a pricing point of view and a practical point of view, they can get a proposal to us that makes economic sense as well. No question about their qualifications and ability to do it.
Jeff, so you're waiting for a response on the 29th, and then how much time after that, if you think it's going to take to find out we can proceed with them?
Well, I think, first of all, we're going to know a lot on the 29th. You know, if their proposal to do a $10 million project is $10 million, we'll know a lot. But I've talked to Ellis about this, and our plan would be to engage with them the following week as quickly as they can. It's going to take us a few days to go through whatever their contractual comments are. We'll have to vet their financial proposal. If we see any particular issues, we may reach out to a few board members to have a conversation. Mayor, we may talk to you, for example, about it, and some others along the way, just to tell you what's going on. Okay. But I would envision that we could get through the process, have a meeting with them within a week. You know, it'll take us 2 or 3 days to look at things, have a meeting within a week, turn it around within a couple weeks. And I would hope that within 2 to 3 weeks, we would be pretty clear that it would be done. And then at that point in time, we could get the RFP out for the design builder.
Okay. All right. Well, we're here now, so let's get all the way and get it done. All right. Any questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. I'm open the floor for any person that has any new business. Crickets. Crickets, Julie. Crickets. All right, no new business. We will know, everyone notes that the next quarterly meeting is on Friday, April 23rd. Please mark that on your calendars. There's no other items for discussion. I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
All right, motion made and seconded. I'll bid everybody a good weekend. No more Browns. Don't get me started. It was right there. It was right there.
Great season, though, Mayor. It's a great season.
It was a great season, but Tim was right there.
Mayor, you have a Cavs team that could obviously beat the Nets with the big three. I mean, what more would you want?
We're gonna know a lot. We're gonna know a lot tonight. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're gonna know exactly what we have tonight. But it's good. It's a good thing. And then just hoping for that these vaccines start flying so we can get back to going to games, getting out of the place late summer, something. Right. So
it's a great first meeting, sir. Great first meeting.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.